If you followed this whole series, you already know more AWS than you think, so let's turn that knowledge into something real, passing the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner exam. It's the friendliest AWS certification. It proves you understand the cloud, and it looks genuinely great on a resume, no deep engineering required. In this final video, we'll do a complete crash course for the exam, with pictures, exactly what's on it, the 4 domains, the concepts that come up again and again, and smart strategies for exam day. Think of this as everything we've learned, organized into a study map that gets you to a pass. Let's earn that badge. First, what the certification actually is. Its code is CLF-C02, and it's the foundational entry-level AWS cert, designed for anyone, not just engineers, students, managers, sales, finance, career switchers. It proves you understand what the AWS cloud is, its core services, basic security, and how pricing works at a conceptual level. You do not need to write code or build anything to pass. The exam itself is 65 multiple-choice questions, 90 minutes, scored from 100 to 1,000, and you need around 700 to pass. It currently costs about $100, and you can take it online from home or at a test center. That's the whole shape of it. The exam is split into 4 domains, each worth a fixed slice of your score, and knowing the weights tells you where to focus. Domain 1, Cloud Concepts, is about 24% what the cloud is and why it's valuable. Domain 2, Security and Compliance, is the biggest at 30%, the Shared Responsibility Model and IAM. Domain 3, Cloud Technology and Services, is 34%, the actual services, compute, storage, networking, databases. And Domain 4, Billing, Pricing and Support, is about 12%, pricing models, support plans, and the cost tools. Notice that security plus technology is nearly 2/3 of the exam, so that's where most of your study time should go. Let's run Domain 1, Cloud Concepts. At its heart, the cloud is simply renting IT resources, compute, storage, databases over the internet on demand and paying only for what you use, instead of buying and running your own physical servers. That one shift from owning to renting is the whole idea, and it unlocks everything else. For the exam, be crystal clear on the contrast. Traditional means big upfront cost, you guessed your capacity, and you maintain the hardware. Cloud means pay as you go, scale up or down instantly, and AWS maintains the hardware. If you can explain why renting beats owning for most modern apps, you've got the foundation of this domain. And AWS frames the benefits of cloud as 6 specific advantages. These show up almost word for word on the exam, so learn them. 1. Trade large upfront expense for low variable pay-as-you-go cost. 2. Benefit from massive economies of scale. Millions of customers means lower prices than you could ever get alone. 3. Stop guessing capacity, scale on demand instead of over or underbuying. 4. Increase speed and agility, spin up resources in minutes, not weeks. 5. Stop spending money running and maintaining data centers, focus on your customers instead. And 6. Go global in minutes, deploy your app around the world with a few clicks. 6 advantages, memorize them. You'll also meet the AWS well-architected framework, a set of best practice pillars for building good systems, and you just need to recognize them. There are 6: operational excellence, running and monitoring smoothly, security, protecting data and systems, reliability, recovering from failure and scaling to meet demand, performance efficiency, using resources effectively, cost optimization, avoiding unnecessary spend, which we covered in depth last video, and sustainability, minimizing environmental impact. You don't need to architect anything for the exam, just know these 6 pillars exist and roughly what each one means. They're AWS's official definition of doing it right. Domain 2 is the heavyweight security and compliance, 30%, and it opens with the single most tested idea, the shared responsibility model. Say it in your sleep, AWS is responsible for security of the cloud, the physical hardware, the global infrastructure, the facilities. You are responsible for security in the cloud, your data, your access management, your configurations, your patching of anything you run. The exam loves to ask which side owns a given task. Quick test: who patches the physical host? AWS. Who sets your S3 bucket permissions and your IAM policies? You. Get the boundary right and you'll bank a lot of this domain's points. The rest of Domain 2 is mostly IAM and good security hygiene, all of which we covered. For the exam, lock in these. The root user is all-powerful, so secure it with MFA and never use it day-to-day. Create individual IAM users, organize them into groups, and follow least privilege. Grant only what's needed. Use roles to give applications temporary credentials instead of long-lived keys. Turn on MFA everywhere, and know the names of a few security helpers like IAM for identity, and services that detect threats and protect against attacks. You're not configuring these in the exam, you just need to recognize what each one is for. Domain 3 is the biggest, at 34%, the actual AWS services, but you already know these from the series, so this is recognition, not memorization. Compute EC2 is a rented server, Lambda is run code without servers, and there are containers in between. Storage, S3, is the object warehouse for files. EBS is a disk for one server. EFS is a shared file system, and Glacier is cheap cold archive. The exam asks scenario questions. A company needs cheap storage for files rarely accessed, and you pick the service. Match the service to the job, exactly like we practiced, and this domain mostly answers itself. Keep going through the services. Databases, RDS is managed relational, SQL, and DynamoDB is managed NoSQL for massive scale. Remember SQL for structure and relationships, NoSQL for scale and flexibility. Networking, a VPC is your private network, and CloudFront is the global content delivery network that caches content close to users. You don't need deep detail, you need the one-line identity of each service so that when a scenario describes a need, the right name jumps out. The whole series was secretly building this exam skill. Here the requirement, name the AWS service. That's 80% of domain 3. One more piece of domain, 3 that the exam reliably tests. AWS Global Infrastructure. 3 terms, keep them straight. A region is a geographic area, like North Virginia. You choose one to run in. Inside each region are multiple availability zones, separate physical data centers, miles apart, so that if one fails, the others keep running. That's how you build for high availability. And edge locations are a much larger network of sites that CloudFront uses to cache content close to your users for speed. Region, then availability zones within it, then edge locations everywhere for delivery. Expect a question or two on exactly that hierarchy. Domain 4, billing, pricing, and support, about 12%, is small but easy points. Know the 3 fundamental cost drivers, compute, storage, and data transfer. OUT of AWS, inbound is generally free. Know the purchase options we covered, on-demand for flexibility, reserved and savings plans for up to about 72% off steady workloads, and spot for up to 90% off interruptible work. Know the free tier exists for learning. And know the tools Cost Explorer to visualize and analyze spend, and AWS budgets to set a limit and get alerted. That handful of facts covers most of this domain. 2 more billing domain items the exam likes. First, AWS support plans. There are 4 tiers: Basic, which is free for everyone; Developer, Business, and Enterprise, which adds a dedicated technical account manager. As you move up the tiers, you get faster response times and more hands-on help for a higher price. Second, AWS Trusted Advisor. It automatically inspects your account and recommends improvements across cost, performance, security, and limits, like a free consultant pointing out wasted money or open security holes. You won't configure either one in the exam, you just need to know what each is and when you'd reach for it. Now, exam day strategy, because smart test taking is worth real points. The questions are scenario-based. They describe a situation and ask the best AWS answer, so read carefully for keywords. Cheapest, most secure, highly available, least effort each point at a different service. Use elimination. You can usually rule out 2 obviously wrong options instantly, then choose between the last 2. There's no penalty for guessing, so never leave a question blank, flag the hard ones, move on, and come back. Watch the clock. 90 minutes for 65 questions is plenty if you don't get stuck. And remember, it's foundational. If an answer looks insanely complex, it's probably the wrong one. Let's pull the whole exam into one map. 4 domains, cloud concepts, renting beats owning, the 6 advantages, the well-architected pillars, security, the shared responsibility model, and IAM, the biggest theme. Technology, match each service to the job, EC2, Lambda, S3, RDS, DynamoDB, VPC, CloudFront, and the region, AZ Edge hierarchy. And billing, the cost drivers, pricing models, support plans, and the cost tools. Everything in this series maps onto one of those 4 boxes. Study from that map, do a couple of practice exams to get used to the scenario style, and you are ready to pass. And that completes our AWS journey from never having touched the cloud all the way to being ready to earn your first certification. If this series made AWS finally click, do me a huge favor and subscribe to VN Cloud, because that's the whole mission here, taking the scary, jargon-heavy parts of the cloud and making them simple with pictures. Go book that Cloud Practitioner exam, walk in confident, and come back and tell me in the comments when you pass. I'll be genuinely thrilled to hear it. Tell me what you want me to break down next, and until then, happy building you want me to break down next, and until then, happy men.